Okay, so it's 10:01, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Good morning, everyone. And today's ORO session is on recruiting historically underrepresented older adults. And Dr. Weiss is going to introduce herself. So go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here today. So I'm Dr. Carleara Weiss. I'm assistant professor at the UB School of Nursing. I am originally from Brazil, and I've been in Buffalo for about 13 years now. My background is in nursing. I am a geriatric nurse by training. I got my bachelor's and my bachelor's in nursing science and a bachelor's in education in Brazil. Then I went for my clinical training in geriatrics. Got into research as an undergrad student. And after I finished my undergrad, I worked as a bedside nurse for a couple of years, came back for my master's in health science, and started working as assistant professor at the university there in Brazil. So I was in the point of my career that I need to get a PhD for my progression for associate professor. But because I was doing research for such a long time, I really want to have a full research experience. So I applied for programs, PhD programs here in the United States, and then ended up landing here in Buffalo. Got my PhD here and never went back to Brazil. And so I'm an alumni for the School of Nursing. I got a postdoctoral fellowship in pharmacology, and then another postdoc in geriatrics, and now I'm back as a research assistant professor at the School of Nursing. My passion and motivation for doing research, as I said, I am a geriatric nurse. I grew up on an intergenerational household with my great-grandmother, my grandmother, my mom, and I. And then I've been a caregiver since I can remember, right? My great-grandmother had dementia and lived with us. Then my grandmother had dementia as well. Common trend between them is having untreated obstructive sleep apnea. So having a sleep problem and having dementia has been part of my caregiver trajectory since I was a little kid. And that really motivated me to become a geriatric nurse and also to do the research that I do, which is looking at sleep, aging, and brain health. I investigate the biomarkers of neurodegeneration in people with Alzheimer's disease and people at risk for Alzheimer's disease. And my recruitment experience is with older adults, veterans, and cancer survivors. So that's me in a nutshell, and that's what I've been doing for the past 13 years here in Buffalo. A little outline about what we're talking today is recruiting historic underrepresented individuals, working with community partners, and then what happens after recruitment. Let's talk then about historically underrepresented individuals. We know that with the current state that we are adjusting our language. So if I say something that you don't understand, please put that in the chat and I can say in a different way. Who are historically underrepresented individuals? So people historically excluded or marginalized from research participation based on race, ethnicity, or social characteristics. That includes then racial and ethnic minorities, women, low socioeconomic status population, older adults, rural populations, and members of gender minorities. And why is it important to recruit underrepresented minorities for research? We have reports from, for example, from the meta-analysis that I put here in the slides, looking at the differences in treatment across different racial groups. So it is important to know the effectiveness and the accuracy of interventions across different racial groups or ethnic groups. Also, it's important to break the negative stereotypes towards some racial cultural groups and increase the trust in the medical and scientific community among those groups as well. how do we go about recruiting historic underrepresented older adults specifically? I like to bring out some information about who are the older adults that we are talking about. So in our country, we are facing this demographic shift towards becoming a more aged population. So people aged 65 and older, it's a growing portion of our population. We are about 50. We are in about the number in millions, right? Increasing that for over 100% increase by 2024. So this population is really growing faster than the other populational groups. It's also becoming more racially and ethnically diverse. So between 2022 and 2050, the share of older population that identifies as non-Hispanic white is projected to drop from 75 to 60%. So more people with a mixed race or from a minoritized group, it's gonna have the fair share of the population of older adults in the next 2 decades or so. Just to put in perspective from the census information from 2023, showing the percentage of increase from 2021 to 2023. So we have 15% increase in African American, 2.4% in Asian, 1%, about 1% in American Indian, Native Hawaiian, and also in Hispanic. So this increase is really significant for our demographic changes. And also we should consider that for our research planning and recruitment efforts. Also, it's important to notice that the older adults, 65 and older, are about 20% of them are either working or seeking to work. So that stereotype of an older person that is retired and at home and not physically active or not socially active, it's broken, right? We need to revisit that and reimagine that the population is really changing, not just from the racial and ethnic concerns, but also about their social perspective. We have information, for example, that in many families, the older person is the head of the family. So the person responsible for all the financial support for that household. So we need to consider those aspects as well when thinking about recruiting them for research participation. Also, we have more people from underrepresented minorities that are older living under the poverty level. So this number is greater for African Americans, followed by Hispanic and then Asian. So the highest poverty rates are experienced by older Asian women living alone. So in contrast with the other racial and ethnic groups. So now that we know a little bit more about the older adults, how the demographic information about them goes, let's think about some overall barriers to or problems to recruitment. We can divide them in practical and individual problems, right? So thinking about practical problems, lack of infrastructure, for example, transportation. How are we going to bring older adults to participate in research at the research site? Do you have the adapted transportation for them? Do you have an adapted access for them to get into the building? Do we have opportunity to go to the community and recruit and enroll participants in the community instead of bringing them to a research center? Also, limited technology access or difficulty using technology. We have a stereotype that older adults don't like technology or don't use technology. It's been my experience in research that Most of the study participants, they have a smartphone. Sometimes they are not familiar with the technology that we are bringing into the research, but they are very open to learn that. Or sometimes they have a grandkid or a family member that is very technology savvy and can help them incorporate the technology to the research. So you need to think about those barriers when planning or researching enrollment. Also, some individual barriers, comorbidities, medical psychiatric disturbances, mistrust in the research and medical team, fear of exploitation, different in cultural beliefs, financial constraints or lack of insurance, lack of caregiver or other social support, and also participant burden. Sometimes people participate in multiple studies because they are from a specific demographic that is being seek to different research groups, and then they get burdened by participating in too many studies. Also, thinking about caregiving. From the data that we have from the 2023 census as well, caregivers of people 65 and older are usually other older adults 65 and older. So it's a spouse caring about the other spouse, or a sibling caring about the other sibling, or a neighbor caring about somebody else in their neighborhood. So there is it is important also to account for that when we are planning our recruitment. How I'm gonna recruit this caregiver to participate in the research? Who is gonna take care of their family member when they are here participating in the research? Can I make sure that my research can be done mostly remote, or can I accommodate the research visits in a way that they can bring their care, the person that they can take care for at the research center or at the hospital, to make sure that they don't lose that time of our caregiving and social support. And there are some challenges that are specific for clinical trials. So related to the investigator, sometimes the lack of cultural sensitivity is a problem too. So we need to examine in ourselves why we're looking to a specific population and how we can learn about that specific population before we start recruitment. Also, when the study design is too complex and we don't provide enough clarity and a clear communication of how to participate on that research. So one thing that I do with my team is having information guides and summaries for every research participant that comes with us. So when they come in to start the participation in the study, along with the consent form, they also get a research summary explaining exactly what is expected to happen as the research time points go by. Also, sometimes our population may have a limited knowledge about clinical trials or limited awareness of how to participate in clinical trials, right? So it's important to be in the community, as I'm gonna say in the next slides, bringing this information so people can participate more and know what is available for them to join. And one, I think the major problem is trust and privacy concerns. So we want to make sure to explain to our community how their privacy is being protected in participating in the research, and build trust so they can join the research efforts, knowing that something valuable is going to come from that. Just to put in historical context, when you talk about trust in research and also mistrust in research, you probably know about the syphilis study that was conducted with African-American men, and there was no informed consent provided for them, and no standard of care with penicillin for those who were diagnosed with syphilis. So that's a I think that is a bookmark example of how not to do research with underrepresented minorities, and has become, as I said, like a bookmark, a hallmark of how we don't do research with underrepresented minorities. And also about the HeLa cancer cells. Also, there was no consent for clinical and laboratory use of the cancer cells for research, and also the profit for use of those cells for research was not shared with her family until 2024. So that's another hallmark of how not to do research with underrepresented minorities. Although those cases of misconduct in research happen in the 70s and the 50s, right? This mistrust is still persists today. So this data from 2021 shows a specific amount among the Black adults how they still feel that misconduct in research is likely to occur today as much as it did in the past, and also how misconduct in research is a big problem. So it's important for us to make sure that our conversation is clear, to bring about the research in a way that we can build trust in the community. And it's more than an ethical issue, right? We have implicit bias, discrimination, disrespect to personhood. So the first approach that we need to have is to break those stigmas. And I speak mostly from a perspective of a Black woman that recruits Black individuals and white individuals as well. However, this is true for other racial groups as well. So overall strategies that we can use to improve recruitment and retention include, as I said, adapt transportation options, having flyers and instructions for technology usage, use easy explanations, and be flexible with recruitment dates and location. Have multiple recruitment channels, for example, phone, text, email, mailing, newspaper, social media. I always like to share, for those who are not familiar with the Buffalo Research Registry, you're able to have your research information being posted there for people that are interested in participating in research. They can find your research there. The Buffalo Research Registry can also help you identify potential participants for your research, so you can contact them directly. Another option, and that's specific for Alzheimer's and dementia research, is the trial match from the Alzheimer's Association. So you can post your research there and also find potential participants. But the main goal for this talk is really talking about the community partners. So let's get into it. So working with community partners, first of all, who are the community partners? Those are leaders from community nonprofits or from church organizations, neighborhood councils, councils focused on different heritages. So those are the community partners. So those are the people that you can partner with and collaborate with to have a better understanding of the community first. And then you can use this better understanding to build relationships with the community. And lastly, is start recruiting for there. So we have frameworks on how we can do community partnerships. But I think it's important to bring some information about community partners that we have in our area. But if you are not sure where you should start, I really recommend contacting the Community Health Equity Institute and then use their knowledge to establish your first community partnership. From my experience, for example, because my research is very clear with the Alzheimer's component, I work in close collaboration with the Alzheimer's Association of Western New York. And also I'm very close with the community on the East Side where I used to live when I got here. Of course, it may seem that because I am a Black woman, I have a better entry, so to speak, to the community, but that should not be a limitation for people from other demographics that want to do community work. As I said, like the first step is really identifying your community partners, understand about the community, support that community, and then you can understand better how your contributions as a researcher can be. We have different types of frameworks on how we can establish partnerships with community. I like the Precede Proceed framework, although it's from 2005. We see more recent research publications using this framework as well. So it consists in ongoing evaluation of your interaction with the community and how you frame your goals as a researcher with goals that you can bring back to the community. So it really start with a social assessment and then thinking from that until an outcome evaluation. So rather than have your research question and bring that to a demographic group, you will start from the community, assessing what the community needs are, and then you incorporate that to your research. That would be the perfect scenario, right? That you are already part of the community and then you identify the needs and bring your research there. However, not everybody starts like this. So if you're not starting like this, what you can do with a community partner? The community partner can help you support your culturally sensitive approach for the community that you are working with. So the community partners can help you understand and avoid stigma, break stereotypes, and that can be done for flyers, marketing, and advertising. I put two figures there on the side just to illustrate ways that we can sometimes have certain stereotypes about an older person, right? So the older person is going to be that friendly grandmother that is dedicated to raise the grandkids or to help with the grandkids. Or a Black person with dementia would be a man really struggling with somebody that barely understands what's going on there, right? So try to avoid those type of figures that reinforce stereotypes. And those are very sensitive topics that sometimes as investigator or research coordinator or research assistant, we cannot see that. But if you bring your materials to the community partners, then let them give you feedback and help you create better advertising materials for your research. Also, language and translation. We have here in the city of Buffalo, we have a large community of refugees and immigrants. And then translating your materials, you need to incorporate this community's knowledge to translate your materials, right? And to make sure that it's not simply translating from English to other language, but also have the cultural appropriation necessary, the cultural approach necessary to make sure that they understand the message that you're trying to convey. And also address health literacy. So make sure that the language that you explain in your research is friendly and accessible for people that have difficult or low health literacy. So I also post 2 examples here of flyers. About one specifically for community with African Americans and one with American Indians. So as I said, many times we see flyers with people that looks like they're really struggling or reinforce stereotypes of racial minorities. So try to bring flyers with images that are more welcoming and less degrading in a way that somebody look at that's like, oh, this people looks very sad and don't want to be on that research, right? Or this picture reinforces a stereotype about my race. I don't want to participate on that research because of that, right? So really try to incorporate information that would resonate with people in a respectful way. Also, to work with community partners, like I showed a wide range of opportunities that we have here in Buffalo, but you really need to find your people to build your community, right? So what is your research focus? What is in the community related to your research focus? So find your people, start showing up for your people, and then you can establish a partnership. So with community partners, community engagement can become a proactive recruitment strategy. So we can hold information sessions and events to talk about research-related topics, not necessarily for recruitment purposes, but because we want to build information on that community. So, for example, with my research being sleep, aging, and brain health, I've been going through the community at least 3 times a year to talk about sleep and aging and brain health and share information about stereotype and listening what the community has to say about those topics too. And that's nothing to do with recruitment for my research, right? It's really building the partnership with the community and also listening what they have to ask about those topics. This helps building trust. So next time that I go there to recruit for a study, they know who I am and they know that I'm not there only to collect data. I have a commitment with the community there. Also, it's important for us to have community participation in the research process. So that can be done with an advisory board or having a recruitment coordinator that is a member of the community. And also with snowball referral. So once, like I said, once the community know who you are, they can help with recruitment by referring other people to participate in the research review. One other time that I was talking about this, somebody asked me for a timeline, like how long it takes to build trust in the community or to build a partnership in the community. And I don't have like a magical number to say this. What I can say is that I've been in the community for, I would say, probably about 10 years. So with that, not related to recruitment purposes, right? And then it gets to a point that the people there know me. And when I go there for recruitment, they already know who I am and what the research I do. Also, it's important to think about your research team as an investigator and yourself as an investigator. So be ready for face-to-face interactions, right? Be ready to face-to-face interaction with the community. Have a team that has good interpersonal skills. So this is a part of my team here. Those are the grad and undergrad students that work with me. And we go together for community events. They are trained on the phone calls that we do for participants and also to answer phone calls that we receive from them. and have that face-to-face interaction with good interpersonal skills. So it needs to be somebody that has the research elevator pitch for the research that you do, but also has the connection or is able to establish a connection with the person they are talking to. And what happens after recruitment? We can talk about retention strategies. For example, after recruitment, try to be flexible and accommodate your study visits and activities in a way that can meet people where they are. So we talked in the beginning on how many of the older adults are actually working or being a caregiver for another older adult. So we can make sure that we schedule these study visits in a way that fits their schedule for working or for being a caregiver to a family member or a friend. Also, try to take advantage of the activities that the community have to incorporate your research visits on that. So, for example, caregivers groups or events for caregivers, health fairs. If you are able to adjust your research visits to those days when people will be there already, it facilitates their participation in the research and also increase the retention rates for your research. Another option is that if you're doing your research in a hospital setting or a primary care setting, adjust your visits, study visits with the medical appointments that this older adult has. So they only have to leave the house for that one day and they get everything done in one day. We work a lot with visit reminders, calling the people in the day before the visit, reminding them that the visit is tomorrow. Sometimes we call in the same day, depending on the time that the visit is, to remind them. It happens quite often that sometimes they put in their calendar and they forget. And then when we call them, they reorganize a schedule and that they are able to make the visits happen. Also anticipate some problems and create solutions for them. For example, for technology, as I said, we sit with the participants and teach them how to use the technology. We also have information flyers that they can bring home and they can look at that if they have any questions, and they can call us anytime if they have questions with the technology that we use. Also for transportation, we try to take advantage of, as I said, when they already have visits to hospital or to other activities, so they have the transportation set for that day. Now with my lab being at the South Campus, we have dedicated parking spots for the research participants. We make sure that we are on an entrance that has accessibility and have signage on how to find the lab. We also creating videos so we can show them, like, this is where you park, this is where you walk in. So videos and pictures of the location. So it helps them situating themselves and finding where we are. And of course, there's always somebody from the team that can go meet them right at the entrance and bring them in. Also, having a research summary with the time points that we will have for this study. So explaining, like, week 0, you're going to do this, week 4, week 8, week 12, and we have the dates that they are coming in. So we create this to help with the retention, and they know exactly what they expect from the research for the next steps. And also buffalo winter. We need to account for that. This morning, I live in the South Towns. I had about 3 inches of snow driving in today, and there is nothing here, right? So we need to accommodate for that, where the person lives, how much snow they're gonna get. So can we concentrate our recruitment efforts for the spring and summer and fall, how are we going to manage the timeline for winter, right? How are we going to handle the snowbirds, the older adults that live here in Buffalo, but they travel to warmer places for the winter, right? So we have to accommodate those strategies for recruitment and for retention as well. So it happens quite often when we're recruiting people in December, for example, that they're not going to be around for the next 2 months. So we make appointments for them to start research participation in the spring and not in December, right? So you accommodate those things in the research. Also, if you look in the literature, strategies for recruitment and retention of underrepresented minorities, one of the strategies is providing incentives, right? I want to highlight the ethical concerns for that. As we talked in the beginning, underrepresented older adults are still in the workplace. Some of them are responsible for the care, the financial support for their families. Many of them are below the poverty level. So monetary incentives to participate in the research cannot be something that will be exploiting them or giving too much of an incentive to them to participate in the research. So we need to accommodate and make informed decision about what this monetary incentive is going to be, to don't be coercive to them, to force them participate in the research because of the monetary incentive. So we need to find the adequate compensation for their time, but that is not luring them into the research because of the monetary incentive. So that's a big ethical concern with underrepresented older adults. Also, once we complete our research recruitment and collect all the data, right, it's important to go back and share the findings with the community. This can be done with group discussions if you're participating in caregivers group, for example. Ask for suggestions for the next steps. Have the community feedback for the next studies. Ask feedback on how it was to participate in the research, right? Was it a positive experience? What can be done better? Create a relationship with the community as a way to have a regular communication and also have feedback for the next studies. For my experience now, being in the community for so long, I have sometimes the phone calls from community members that has nothing to do with the research. They are becoming more interested in learning how their grandkid can go to college at UB, for example. That has nothing to do with the research, but it's a sign of my participation in the community, right? And the trust that I built with the community. Other things that happens too is some people, they like to participate in your research. They felt it was a positive experience for them, and they want to participate in the next study, or they give you suggestion for a next study. I have 2 studies under review right now that focus on health literacy for underrepresented older adults, because that's what a concern from people participating in my current study now. They said, they gave me feedback on what it is to participate in a clinical trial, and also the concerns they have about understanding the risk for dementia, right? So based on their feedback and in having a community partner and somebody that volunteered to be an advisor for my research, somebody from the community who volunteered to be an advisor for my community, then we create this new study, that 2 new studies that are under review right now. So this empowers the community as well, right? Knowing that somebody is doing research with their research goal, but is also looking after them, looking out for them, and helping them achieve a better quality of life by answering some questions that they may have through the research that we conduct. So also important for a research team is to have evaluation and more training. What we learned from this research experience, how we can do better for the next time. And again, I need to say that UB has very good resources for training and helping us become better investigators by going back and evaluating what we've done and learning for the next steps. And of course, listen to the community and learning what we can do better. So some examples of what we do, we have every year a Black Caregivers Conference that we changed the name this year to empowering aging in the Black community. But we are there every year. Even if I'm not one of the speakers, I'm there also. We have caregivers groups on different locations in town. So try to participate on those as well. Finding who are your people, right? So this is my people. This is where I go to talk about studies, and this is where I go to listen and just don't say anything, just participate in the community and be available for them. That's all I have for today, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions for our speaker? You can either type them into the chat or just go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, Dr. Weiss. Mo, Yanni Maggie. Thank you for the presentation. Really awesome. And I especially like the little personal touch and journey in the beginning too. Kind of helps to put things in context. Like a lot of the techniques and strategies, and especially for recruitment that you're describing, you kind of have to take an extra step with special populations, older populations and so on. But it sounds to me almost like these are the kinds of strategies that like you would want to do with anybody, no matter who they are. Just good advice in general. But aside from that, dissemination is something that, and taking it back to the community, the research results is something that always comes up as like I'm not in a research, kind of position anymore, but I've worked on studies in the past, and it always seems like that last step is kind of missing, or it doesn't get accomplished, or somehow, you're doing the studies to take back to the community, but do you actually see it happen? How does it happen? From the lab to the bedside, or back to the community. Can you speak for that a little bit?
Yes, that's a great question, and nice to meet you in person via Zoom. We talk so much on email. Thanks, by the way, for all your support. So it really is something that I don't see very often in other research teams, but it's something that we are very committed to doing with my research team. So I work with amazing research coordinator and undergrad and grad students, and we are out in the community for like Live Well Iris has some things, Alzheimer's Association has some things, the School of Nursing has other things, and we make those as opportunities to share about research findings. And because I've been doing that for a while now, I have, as I said, like set 3 opportunities, one in the spring, on the summer, and the fall, that I go to the caregivers group and bring research information. So I say, the study is not done yet, but this is what we've learned so far. And sometimes they ask me, okay, so you're talking about this in your research. Can you talk about this new medication that come out? So try to combine their interest with bringing back the research finds that we have. And in my experience as well, doesn't need to be something like a scientific presentation. Is really just giving step by step. This is where we are now. This is what we found so far. Sometimes they ask me, can you tell me if I was in the placebo or in this intervention group? I said, I cannot say that yet, but this is the overview that we have from the study so far. As I said, I don't see that happening very often, unfortunately, just like you said as well. But it's something that helps build trust in the community, that you're not there just to collect the data and to benefit yourself as a researcher, but you're really committed to give something back to them.
Thank you. Sounds good.
Do we have any other questions? People are thanking you in the comments for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ashley. Thank you, Courtney.
I just I don't know if it's so much of a question, but I really love the idea of, bringing what the community takes to you as far as future research questions, because we all get in our own heads, and sometimes like as research teams we'll kind of have the same ideas as one another, so it's amazing to be able to take those ideas from just the community and bring them back and say, you know what, that is a good question, let's see if we can answer that for you. And it seems like it does build trust for them. It's like, this may not have been a question that they were interested in, but they're going to answer it for me. They're going to look into this. So
Yes, yes. So as I said, I have 2 grants now being reviewed with questions that were from the community. And then when I went to the last caregiver group, they asked me like, did you hear for the grant yet? I'm like, no, it takes months to hear for them. But then they got to know about the research process a little more too. And they said like, I was thinking about this other thing. I'm like, okay, let's let's think about how we can incorporate that on another research. And it's so interesting that you start to learn more about the community as you go and about the questions that you may think would be the best option for the next study. But then they say, for example, I'm working on health literacy, and they said, I want to understand better what the research entails, but I also want to know if my risks of having Alzheimer's disease are being greater because I'm doing so much caregiver work and I'm 68. And I said, you know what? I think that is another research that we can look at how you can bring your experience for that. So it's a very valuable collaboration. And of course, like for me personally, I see my great grandmother and my grandmother and all this that I do. So it's really fulfilling on that personal note as well.
Well, again, Dr. Weiss, thank you. I don't see any more questions coming up, so thank you all for coming, and Dr. Weiss, thank you again for presenting.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye, everyone. Have a great day.